Like it or not, the 6 years of Neal Brown was one of the worst stretches of Mountaineer football ever, the worst since the late 1970s. But despite the era, despite the fact the record was not good, that he was barely over 500 and was below 500 in Big 12 play, there were some positive moments in the Neal Brown era. And in this episode of Couz's Corner, we're going to go over my top 5 moments of the Neal Brown era. Let's be positive, and let's do that right after this word from one of my channel sponsors. Since 1931, the attorneys at Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner have been the voice for victims who have suffered serious injury or death. They have a fierce passion for truth and justice and a sincere compassion for those who have been wronged by others. Whether you have been in a car accident, are fighting with an insurance company, or you or a loved one has suffered serious injury or death due to medical negligence, we will ensure your voice is heard loud and clear. Katz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner will ensure there is justice for all West Virginians because we are your lawyer, your voice. Visit us at yourlawyeryourvoice.com. What is up, and welcome into this episode of Couz's Corner, your home for top shelf college sports news and analysis around the West Virginia Mountaineers and the Big 12. Let's go ahead and count down the 5 most positive moments of the Neal Brown era. Number 5, the upset win over Iowa State in 2021. I remember this game. West Virginia came back to win this game late in the fourth quarter. We remember the big catch by Bryce Ford Wheaton in the back of the end zone. It was a big win. It felt like West Virginia had turned the corner. It felt like that was the moment that Neal Brown and the Mountaineer program had turned the corner. They were finally on the climb. You know, Iowa State was coming off a very good 2020 season where they made the Big 12 title game. They were ranked at the time. I think they were 21st in the country, maybe something like that. But nonetheless, it was a very, very talented. I mean, Brock Purdy and Breece Hall were both on that football team. And West Virginia was able to pull off the victory 38-31. Huge, huge moment in West Virginia football at the time. It ended up not meaning as much as we thought it would, but at that moment in time, it was a big moment. And I had to choose between that moment and West Virginia beating Navy in the 2020 Liberty Bowl. And I picked this game because I felt like at that time when it happened, it felt like a bigger moment to me because Iowa State was a conference team. It was a conference team that was ranked, and it just felt like that was the moment West Virginia had finally started, their upward trajectory. Needless to say, it didn't last long, but in that moment, it felt like it was a big moment and felt bigger than the Liberty Bowl win over Army, to be honest, at least to me. Number 4 on the list, the 3 consensus All-Americans that Neal Brown coached at West Virginia. Now, this is not necessarily a moment, but I felt like it needed to be recognized. West Virginia has only had 14 consensus All-Americans in their history, over 100 years of football. Only 14 consensus All-Americans. 21% of those 14, 3 people were named consensus All-Americans under Neal Brown's watch. They were Darius Stills in 2020, Beanie Bishop in 23, and, of course, Wyatt Milam this past season in 2024. Zach Frazier, surprisingly, was not a consensus All-American, but he was an All-American. That being said, now Darius Stills, could you give Dana Holgorsen partial credit for that one? You could. Dana actually deserves a lot of credit because he coached Darius for a longer period of time, actually, than Neal did. Neal only coached Darius 2 seasons, where Dana coached him, I think, for 3 or at least 2 seasons in Morgantown. But Neal Brown, again, 21% of the consensus All-Americans in West Virginia's history were under Neal Brown. Very, very ironic that happened under the Neal Brown era, one of the worst stretches of West Virginia football. But I do think Neal Brown deserves some credit for that. They recognized something in Beanie Bishop that other coaches may not have recognized, and they did a very good job coaching offensive linemen. We all know that, and also recruiting offensive linemen. And then with Darius Stills, they recognized and his talent and put him in a position to succeed. So they deserve credit for that, he and his staff. So I wanted to mention that. I thought it deserved mentioning. Number 3 of the top 5 moments of the Brown era, the Backyard Brawl win in 2023. Yes, he went 1-2 in Backyard Brawls, and that's not good. But this Backyard Brawl win was big. It was a 17-6 win over Pitt after the huge, disappointing loss in 2022 that really took the air out of that season, I feel like. Well, I felt like this win may have put the air into the 2023 season. And that season was the best season in the Neal Brown era. And yes, Pitt was not good that year, but that was still an important win. It kind of, like I said, it kind of propelled the team, and it was a defensive win too, something that program needed. Beanie Bishop had a big night. And another thing that made it special was the fact that Garrett Green, the starting quarterback, was injured in the first series of the game, and they were still able to win. They ran the ball down Pitt's throat, got turnovers, took advantage of a very, very bad Phil Dracovic, who just had a monstrous, disastrous game and a disastrous season for the Panthers that year. But West Virginia did win the game, and it was a big moment. I was there to witness it live, and it was a pretty cool experience. Not the most exciting game in the world to watch, but it was a good atmosphere, and the Mountaineers pulled off a victory. And anytime you beat Pitt, it's a good night. As we dive into the 5 most positive moments, or the 5 biggest moments of the Neal Brown era, I want to give a shout out right now to a channel sponsor, Elite Scuba and Adventures. Right now, go to elitescubaadventures.com and check them out. They're also found on social media. But you can check them out for PADI Discover Diving, open water certifications, advanced diver and specialty courses, including a dive master certification. They do bundle and save deals. They offer discounts to first responders and vets. Also, even if you're not a first responder or a vet, if you use Couz 5, it's Couz, COUZ 25 at checkout, you will also get 5% discount just for hearing it right here on Couz's Corner. So go to Elite Scuba Adventures today, elitescubaadventures.com today, if you're interested in scuba diving, whether you're learning about scuba diving or doing a cool scuba trip to somewhere like Thailand or maybe Key West, somewhere cool like that. And to top it off, they are owned and operated by West Virginia Mountaineer fans. So support a fellow Mountaineer fan at elitescubaadventures.com today. Number 2, the Black Diamond Trophy games. Neal Brown was 2-0 in those games, capped off by the 33-10 victory in the 2022 game, where Toby Spells capped it off with a pick 6. That was a big moment, in my opinion. And then in 2022, 27-21 was the final score in Morgantown. For all the negative things that happened in the Neal Brown era, he did go 2-0 against Virginia Tech, and secured and kept the Black Diamond Trophy in Morgantown. So hats off to him and his staff and the players for being able to pull that off. Again, wasn't a great Virginia Tech team, wasn't even a good Virginia Tech team, but it wasn't a great Mountaineer team either, and they still pulled off the win, 33-10, after beating them 27-21 the previous year. And one moment in the Neal Brown era was the Duke's Mayo Bowl victory over UNC in Charlotte, 30-10 in 2023, to cap off their 9-4 season. I was at this game as well. Very, very cool atmosphere. The scene of Neal Brown getting mayonnaise dumped on his head is something we'll always remember. Again, we felt like that was going to catapult the team into great success. We thought 2024 would be the year that things would be special. Ended up not being so special. But the cool thing about that 2023 season we all remember was how mad Neal Brown was in the preseason Big 12 mini days. West Virginia was picked 14th, and in that case, dead last that year. Ended up finishing 9-4, and I think tied for 4th, maybe something like that in the Big 12 standings. And a nice victory over another Power 4 team in a bowl game, and a dominant win. The game wasn't even close. Yes, there was an asterisk. I know Drake May didn't play. I know a lot of other UNC players didn't play, but neither did Zach Frazier. Zach Frazier didn't play that game for the Mountaineers, and they were still and they were able to pull off a win, 30-10 over the Tar Heels, in a big moment. But those are my top 5 Neal Brown moments at West Virginia that I do think we need to remember, and you know that some of these will go down as important moments or important games. And in case of the consensus All-Americans, 3 of the 14 consensus All-Americans in West Virginia history. So there's some cool moments in Mountaineer lore that happened under Neal Brown. Not as many as we'd like, not as many as maybe we saw under other coaches. But I did want to kind of take the glass half full approach in this video. I will probably do another video later where we take the glass half empty approach and look at what went wrong in the Neal Brown era. So be on the lookout for that video coming up very soon. I want to take this opportunity to shout out the VIP channel members of this episode: Bill G, Phil Masters, Tom Reinhardt, Brandon Bailey, and Houston Cougars, Germany. If you want to be a VIP channel member, hit the join button below or check the join button out over at my channel homepage and press it over there. Take advantage of the perks that go along with being a channel member. Also, want to give a shout out to my channel sponsors once again, Couz, Cantor, Stone Street, and Buckner Attorneys at Law, the fine folks over at Appalachia Digital who designed my website, and of course, the fine folks at Elite Scuba and Adventures. Check them out if you want to go scuba diving. Thanks for tuning in. Please hit the thumbs up button. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. Help me get to 10,000. Please share it with your family and friends who like West Virginia Mountaineer sports and YouTube. With that being said, I appreciate everything. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate the support. Hope the rest of your day is top shelf and Q Country Roads.